All right, we're going to get started. Welcome to the City of Revere Conservation Commission meeting, Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. For those that would like to, let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. Do roll call. Robert Cassidy. Present. Samantha.
Present.
Nicholas.
Present.
Joseph.
Here.
John Shu, I'm here. And Brian Everback is out tonight. All right. Can we go ahead and throw up my screen for the agenda? Let me see if I can. Can you see it? All right. So this is the agenda. We have this is the wrong one. Hold on. Here it is. So we'll do the review and approval of meeting minutes in just a second. The continuation of hearing for the notice of intent for Leach Park that has been pushed a month. We have 2 enforcement things we'll be listening to. We have a notice of intent for 37 Revere Beach Boulevard, a notice of intent for 84 Arcadia Street, a notice of intent for some off-site roadway improvements down and around Suffolk Downs. Request for determination of applicability for replacement and installation of utility poles along Revere Beach Parkway. And then we have an order of conditions scope inquiry. So if you didn't get the agenda, that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, you can close it. All right, review and approval of the meeting minutes for April 5th, 2023. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections? I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, minutes are approved. All right, first up is we have a couple of enforcement. So back in, I think it was December, we sent out some notices of violation for some pavement that had been put down without an order of conditions or coming through the Conservation Commission. So first up is 25 Bickford. So as you come up, you'd state your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson.
Turn your mic on.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson, members of the Revere Conservation Committee. Attorney Joe Francisi present. I am representing the homeowners, Edward Bomarcy, Regina Bomarcy, over at 25 Bickford Avenue, Revere, Mass.
Okay, so he just handed in a submittal. So for those that don't remember, the owners got a permit to do some paving for a basketball court. And it is in the 100-year floodplain. It's on a barrier island, coastal dune. They did not come before the Conservation Commission. We notified them. They've been working with the commission. We've been working with them. And they've proposed some mitigation, which is on the drawing, where basically they're just adding a drip edge along the front and the side, which will take care of the majority of the 2-year and 10-year nuisance rainstorms. there's not much you're gonna do with coastal flooding, but it's the storm water. We wanted to get off the street and out of the neighbors' yards. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? When do you think this would get installed by?
I've been in touch with Mr. Salvo, who's present here, the engineer, and reached out to the homeowner, and we're going to be engaging the services of a contractor forthwith in order for them to comply with the terms of this mitigation.
All right, so by June 30th?
Possibly. I mean, we're going to start the process now, and if we do need additional time, I can
Okay.
reach out to the
I
commission.
just want to get a date captured because I want to follow up this with a letter
Yep.
capturing the owners agreed to do this by a certain date and to let us know when it gets done so we can come out
Absolutely.
and then issue a letter, you're in good standing, so. Is the commission in agreement with that approach? All right, that's what we're gonna do. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here from 35 Arcadia?
Good evening, council members. I'm Palab Saeed, and this is my wife, Saima Saeed. We're from 35 Arcadia. So last year, we bought the house, and our driveway was asphalt, and which isn't permitted. So we came up with a proposal that we're gonna do a drip edge along the fence, which is like about 1 feet from the fence. That's gonna go all the way to the backyard. And hopefully, we do have a similar diagram. We did consult somebody who's going to do the work for us.
Mr. John Shu.
I'll probably pass it to you.
Okay.
It'll be filled with stones.
Yep. Do you know when you would be able to complete this?
Yes, we plan on getting this by end of this week, like Friday.
Okay. So it's the same similar solution, catching your basic 2-year, 10-year nuisance rain events. So if you guys are in agreement, I'll issue a letter documenting this and just let me know when you're done.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, next up is a notice of intent for 37 Revere Beach Boulevard, where the plan is to raise the existing structure and construct a mixed-use commercial residential building within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Jamie Russo, Beach Landing LLC, DEP file number 061-0800.
Do you want to put this over here? What's better for the commission?
I don't know.
That's okay?
He's zooming in on it, so I think we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing formally. And if you would state your name and address.
Certainly. Good evening, members of the commission. My name's Peter Blaisdell. I'm a land surveyor and a civil engineer at Williams and Spiragus, located at 189 North Main Street in Middleton, Mass. And let's see, thank you. Actually, my colleague Rick Salvo was kind enough to tell me that there was a number issued tonight, so I did double check that, so thank you for bringing that up. Did you receive proof of mailing from us by email, or would you like either green cards or white cards? What we
You can give the green cards to Linda.
Hi, Lillian. How are you? Thank you. Okay. All right, I'll try to keep it quick so I don't bore you too badly, and you can just ask any questions you like. So, first off, we had a site visit yesterday in the pouring rain. John and Mr. LaValle were kind enough to show up, and Mr. Cassidy as well showed up in the downpour to take a look at it. So, is everybody familiar where the site is? Okay, so it's located at the corner of Ocean Ave, West Street, and Revere Beach Boulevard. The lot is approximately 4,585 square feet. There was an existing house there and a couple of structures, decks, patios, that type of thing. That was raised already, but before they did that, the applicant made sure that there was some filter fabric put in the two catch basins that were located adjacent to it, so it wouldn't get sedimented. Kind of an interesting little situation. We actually have two special flood hazard areas that run through the property. I'm not sure exactly how that works. There's an elevation 11, and then if you move over 20 feet, it's 12. I don't know how that works, but that's okay. And then across the street at the wall, we have the limit of the velocity zone, which is, I believe, is elevation 14. As we discussed yesterday, the beach is certainly undergoing some plum plover. Did I say it right? Piping plover, thank you, I always blow that one. So the coastal beach is actually further away from us, and the 100-foot buffer to that, we have no activity within that buffer zone. So the proposal, which has already gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals and got approval there, and has gone site plan review, as well as DCR, is to construct a 7-story multi-use commercial residential building that's going to be entirely within that footprint. So essentially, it's going to be lot line to lot line. One of the questions that came up, Mr. Shu and I were talking about it, is as far as any stormwater management. There isn't any stormwater management here because essentially the whole thing is roof, which is going to discharge directly right to the DCR drainage system on Ocean Ave. There's going to be a garage underneath. We were actually showing Mr. Shu how it's going to be at grade in the back, and you'll drive right into a subsurface garage that'll have 4 spaces. Typically, in a situation like this, we try to see if there's any way we can do any type of stormwater management, but unfortunately, because of the elevation, the groundwater is only down about 4 feet. So once you wouldn't have any chance to put in any recharge chambers or dry wells or that type of thing. So those are the things we looked at beforehand. And again, since all of the internal drains inside the garage would go through an MDC gas trap, that'll discharge right to the sewer. So that wouldn't even become a factor with the drainage system. So as I mentioned, the only difference with DCR is from what we got back from a comment from them for what you see on the plan is they actually asked if we could reconstruct this handicap ramp, build a new one there, and rebuild that one that's across the street because it's in poor condition. So we said, no problem. We were going to redo this sidewalk here anyways. And since it's DCR's road, they can give us the permission to do that. I just wanted to mention that since the time of us submitting these plans, they just asked us if we would rebuild that one. So we'll show that on a revised plan. But other than that, all the activity falls within our lot. We will be providing erosion control in the form of silt sacks at the catch basins that are near. We will be surrounding everything with silt fence, and then when the work is done in the evening, make sure that there are hay bales there. And you can also condition if you want, but I believe I already have it in the operation and maintenance plan that it needs to be swept and make sure that it's clean at the end of the day. So we'll make sure that that's done. And you met the contractor there yesterday. He's a very, very on top of his job. He said he'd make sure that's a clean site. And with that, I don't believe I have any other information to give you, so I'll stop talking and you can give me some questions.
You did update the plan for daily inspections.
I did, yeah. I believe I emailed that over to you.
Yep,
So
so I have that.
Thank you for reminding me. I forgot to write that down. Typically on our operation and maintenance plan, we'll say inspect after every half an inch of rain or every 14 days. Mr. Shu asked if we could just make it to daily, which was no problem. So we updated that and sent that over.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions?
Just a few.
Go ahead, Mr. Valley.
So I just want to make sure I understand now, the drainage is all going to Ocean Ave, nothing on the boulevard, as far as the roof is concerned?
Correct. Everything will be collected up on the top of the roof with scuppers and downspouts and discharged right into the Ocean Ave system.
And with the limited parking that you do have, there will be a gas trap?
So, yeah, anytime there's
Because that would be going right into the DCR sewers, yeah.
Yeah, so anytime you have an internal drain like that, you have to have floor drains in the garage, and it would go through the gas trap and then into the sewer.
And also, it's kind of antiquated now, but one of the other things that we were doing on apartments that were on the beach was a notification in case of a an emergency that those cars are gonna have to get out of there.
I think that's, I mean, if you have a condition of something like that that you've been doing up and down the beach, feel free. You know, as I was saying, the gentleman that you met yesterday, the construction worker, he was telling us his first day on a job in Boston, Boston Water Sewer hit a 18-inch water main and flooded all the cars out in the basement. So we certainly would definitely want to give people some clue to get out of there.
Yeah, this would be during coastal storm events, where you'd be anticipating a lot of flooding,
Oh, yeah,
so.
I agree.
Any other questions, Mr. Valley?
Quick question. So, I looked on the plans that you emailed over. Thank you for sending those over. You said that the flood storage will actually increase with the new property. Can you explain that a little bit?
So the way the property was now is that you had all of the material was up against the house in the front, and then it was all graded around the side and then to the back, and then the house obviously took up that volume. So what we're gonna be doing essentially is just kind of, and I don't mean to say we're gonna be storing anything, it's a drop in the bucket, obviously, if the Atlantic floods, but essentially we're hollowing out the lot, and the sides of the lots are gonna be held up by the building. So it'll be flood-proof construction. There'll be flow-through openings in probably the garage door and possibly some places in there. So we're actually creating more volume just by digging out the subterranean garage. So that's always a big question, is that are we filling in land subject to storm flowage, or are we making it any better? So in this case, again, even though it's a drop in the bucket, it's an improvement.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the commissioners? All right. Anyone in the audience would like to speak on behalf of the project? Anyone in the audience would like to speak against the project? Okay, hearing none. It's pretty straightforward. I just will mention the building will occupy the whole lot. The whole lot's under roof. There's really no snow removal. And you can see from the rendering, I think it's gonna be a nice addition downtown, down there, so.
Yeah, I think it's, well, obviously, I mean, I grew up not too far from here, but obviously the beach has been a big improvement since then. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a very nice looking building. David Barsky, I think you know, has done quite a bit of the work up and down Shirley Avenue, which you've seen has gone through a real renaissance, so.
And what do we anticipate to be in the bottom floor?
So, again, not to put words in the client's mouth, but he's thinking it's gonna be a restaurant. That's not locked down yet, but there's commercial space available if they do wanna do a restaurant. If in fact it does become one, the only thing we would have to do is just alter the design a little bit and add a grease trap, which I think we would have to submit that to the Board of Health. But other than that, it would be a very minor modification.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. I'm gonna go ahead and close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a
Yes.
second?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Hearing's closed.
Thank you, everyone.
Any further discussion among the commissioners? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve this NOI and issue an order of conditions.
Motion to approve the NOI?
It's a very narrow,
Can I get a second?
narrow piece of land. A farmer student.
Second.
Second, all right. All in favor of approving the NOI and issuing an order?
Aye.
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 All right, so, thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is a notice of intent for 84 Arcadia Street. DEP file number 061-0797. The owners are 84 Arcadia Street LLC, and this is for a construction of two buildings. One will be a two-family and one will be a three-family. I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing. And you'd state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance. Here with me this evening is John Nikasian from Acadia Street LLC and attorney Nancy O'Neill, who's been supporting him through the special permit process. So as you might recall, this notice of intent was originally filed for an educational home, you know, there was a lot of discussion about that with the neighborhood. It wasn't really a use that the neighborhood particularly wanted to have in their neighborhood, and the applicant met with the neighbors and decided to change it to a similar scheme that had been contemplated many years ago to a 5-unit townhouse development. So the original notice of intent was filed for one building on a lot. I think you saw in our letter here updating to the DEP. Since we're adding a second building, we paid an additional fee, re-notified the abutters, re-advertised, and here we are today. So the lot is currently occupied by an existing multifamily dwelling. It's in the 100-year floodplain, which everyone knows in this area is known as land subject to coastal storm flowage. About the back 20 feet of the lot or so, the barrier beach line extends from across the street, although we aren't proposing any work within the barrier beach. So the primary resource area that we're dealing with here is land subject to coastal storm flowage, which brings us to the commission. We did have a site visit. I think most of the commissioners, maybe except one, were there a few months ago for the prior project. Obviously, the site hasn't changed. It was pretty evident that there are no other resource areas on the project. I know at one point there was some talk if there were any vernal pools there, and it was pretty clear that there aren't any vernal pools on the subject property. So the proposal would be to demolish the dwelling, construct a duplex up front, which would be 22 by 35 each unit, and a threeplex in the rear, which would be 22 by 30 each unit. Each one of these units is equipped with a flow-through foundation. So the first floor elevation would be elevated to elevation 12.25. I believe the floodplain's elevation 10 in this area, so would be the living space would all be above the floodplain. There'd be just a crawl space underneath the building that would allow floodwaters in the event of the 100-year flood coming to be able to flood this site as if the buildings weren't even there. So it would flood right underneath the buildings, really not really remove any flood storage capacity from the site, kind of as was discussed in the previous project. There's a high groundwater in this area, so in order for us to mitigate the parking area and pavement, if we were to use traditional best management practices like catch basins and subsurface system, it would require raising the grade significantly, which wouldn't really be very helpful to the neighborhood. So in an effort to kind of keep the grade where it is, we're going to use a pervious pavement solution. So about 29 inches of the earth would be excavated out, be replaced with a reservoir course, a choker filter course of stone, so as to mitigate the stormwater that passes through the stone, gets stored in that reservoir course, and would then be able to permeate back into the ground. I know there was a lot of talk. We had our first city council meeting last Monday evening. We're on the agenda this coming Monday for the zoning subcommittee. Obviously, it is a floodplain. Flooding is a concern in that area. With the addition of the pervious pavement system and the reservoir course underneath, it'll add about 5,000 cubic feet of storage in that stone under the pavement, you know, which would be a big help to the area. You know, beyond that, the lot is only just under 17,000 square feet, so there's not a whole lot that can be done to mitigate stormwater, but adding 5,000 cubic feet of storage to this site, I think is pretty much the max that one could do to be able to try to do what they could to improve the situation.
What size rainstorm is that in frequency? Would that take care of?
If you take a look at the calculations, this thing holds all the way up to the 100-year storm, completely holds it. So it would actually exceed the 100-year storm. So if you think about it, such a large void, it's almost like having a giant pond underneath the whole entire project. So there's about 9 trees that are gonna be coming down as part of this project. Those of you that were on the site walk remember at least a handful of those, were in really tough shape, probably mostly dead. But during the site plan review meeting, Mr. Stringy required that we plant 9 new trees, so we're showing 9 proposed trees of different native species throughout the project, and then landscaping, obviously, around the edges. Utility connections, as we discussed, there'll be individual water services that will run out. This building will be sprinkled, so there'll be a sprinkler system for this building. Individual water services here, and then we'll run a sewer main into the project, and all the sewers will connect to that sewer main by gravity. We're also proposing, at the request of the engineering department, to construct a cement concrete sidewalk and put vertical curbing in front of this site, that hopefully at some point the game will be continued down the street. We've also submitted an erosion control plan during construction. We have the same construction phase O&M and long-term O&M as was submitted for the prior project, that has the frequency of the inspection of the hay bales and that sort of thing on a daily basis, as well as the long-term as we had discussed on other projects. So I think that's effectively the project, so I think at this point I turn it back to the commission for questions or comments.
So with this revised project, there's quite a bit more planting area than there was previously, right?
Yes. This kind of shows how it fits into the neighborhood, maybe a little bit better.
Can you zoom in on that?
Quite a bit of green space in the back. This is the Atlanta condominium. This is the parking lot associated with the club that fronts on the boulevard. So, and this is the old narrow gauge railroad that runs behind it that I believe is now the power line.
If you folks recall from last time, the whole thing was under either roof or pavement. All right. Any of the commissioners have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Rick, you mentioned that you're removing 25 inches of material and you're going to replace that. Could you give me a better idea of the profile of that 25 inches that you're going to replace
Sure.
the soil with?
It's shown right here on sheet C2, if you want to look at it in more detail. There's essentially 6 inches of porous asphalt, 4 inches of crushed stone choker course, a 12-inch gravel filter course, and then a 3-inch pea stone layer and a 4-inch crushed stone layer. So that comes straight out of the DEP stormwater manual, because obviously porous asphalt is a recognized, approved best management practice under the DEP stormwater regs, so we just mimicked it exactly how it's set up in that manual.
And the other thing I'd like to just mention to the chairman also, you're going to plant how many trees did you mention? 7?
9 trees.
9. I think the commission would like to know when you decide the type of tree and also the size or age.
Yeah, it's American hornbeam.
Yeah, 2.5-inch caliper. We found that sometimes, I think most municipalities view the 1 to 1.5-inch calipers as being a little bit too small. The 2 to 3-inch calipers seem to have the best chance of survival. Obviously, as you go up in caliper size from that, the trees get quite a bit more expensive, and the survival rate, sort of diminishes. So the 2.5-inch caliper seems to be the sweet spot and the best place to plant. So, and I imagine that the commission will probably, is a standard condition by most commissions, to put that it has to survive for, a number of growing seasons, whatever it is, 1 or 2. So there's some assurance to the commission that the trees will survive.
I had to go look it up. I and.
2 growing seasons is
Yeah.
typically the norm.
Yeah, yeah, we'll,
But when you made the procedure before, that you mentioned it, you didn't mention the kind of tree. You said, that's why I asked. I didn't know it was already
yeah, they
selected.
didn't.
Yeah,
So
these
the
were
last
four
time, I
American
just told them it
hornbeam.
had to be indigenous to Massachusetts, to New England, and in this go-around, they called them out.
Yeah, 3 river birch, 4 American hornbeam, and 2 more American hornbeams. So that'll make up the 9.
All right, any other questions from the commissioners? So I just mentioned, so we get on the public record, that the DEP provided a bunch of comments, and the O&M plan and the plans all address all of their comments.
Yeah, the majority of the DEP comments were around any work in the barrier beach, but there is no work in the barrier beach other than the installation of some landscaping. And then there was also a concern of wave action, but in this particular case, we have a series of buildings along the boulevard here. First, there's a seawall, then we have the buildings along the boulevard, none of which really have pass-throughs in them. They sort of act as barriers, so it's unlikely that there would be a lot of wave action by the time floodwaters reached the rear of this property. So we're confident with the flow-throughs in there that the floodwaters would be able to move through this site however they need to move through the site without ricocheting off and heading in directions that they're not intended to head. I think that's going to happen long before it gets to us.
All right, if I don't hear any other questions from the commission, I'm going to open it up to any members in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this project.
Anthony Paziali, 51 Arcadia Street. I want to, thank the developer for the changes that he's made on the property. Having 9 trees, a lot of people in my community were concerned about there being no trees whatsoever. I'm going to be happy to report to them that you are putting new trees in because they were worried about trees being taken out. I love the idea that there's going to be water storage underneath that will probably lower the water table for the neighbors next door that they're concerned about. I think it's a great project. I do like the fact that you guys did a thank you for doing a good job and ensuring that there was no vernal pool there. Very important to me. Thanks, guys. And I think the project's going to be great for our community. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Bono, 916 North Shore Road. I've been a resident of that community for over 40 years. I want to thank John for being open-minded enough to change his original plan and to finally remove a headache from the neighborhood of a blighted vacant property that's been nothing but a headache there for 30 years. I'm in favor of this 100%. And again, I want to thank John and the Dean Brewster team for bringing this to the table. I think it's a great idea. They laid out the design just perfectly. Thank you for being able to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on behalf of the project? Is there anyone that would like to speak against the project or make any comments? Hearing none. Any last questions from commissioners? All right, then I entertain a motion to close this hearing.
I'll make a motion to that.
Second it?
All in favor to close this hearing?
I'll second it.
Aye.
All right, this hearing is closed. Any discussion? All right, entertain a motion to.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions based on the plans that were presented.
All right, get a second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes, so,
Thank you for your time.
all right, thank you. All right. Next up is a notice of intent for quite a few off-site roadway improvements along Revere Beach Parkway, Winthrop Avenue, and Lee Burbank Highway. This is all part of the Suffolk Downs redevelopment project being done by McClellan Highway Development Company. DEP file number 061-0799. So I'm going to go ahead and open this hearing.
Good evening. Thanks for, good to be here before the Traffic Commission, before the Conservation Commission. My name is Mike Borowski. I'm with the HYM Investment Group. We're here tonight to talk about the offsite improvements at Suffolk Downs as part of our Phase 1.
So I have presentations. Can I hand them out to you guys?
Sure.
Those are just the construction.
Okay,
plans.
okay. I don't need to speak to the slides. I just have a couple minor items to address. So I'm here with Bob Messenger from Howard Stein Hudson. So we're here today to talk about the traffic improvements that are part of the first phase of Suffolk Downs. So just for background, these traffic improvements have been reviewed and they were part of our master plan permitting process that we went through with MIPA, the City of Boston, and the City of Revere. All of these locations are within Revere, of course. And these were all approved again as part of our MIPA approvals and part of our special permit approvals within Revere. So come at the end of a long, effort that started back in 2017. Just for background, we are starting construction on the site. Some of you who've driven by the site might have seen that there's one building going up and a lot of on-site improvements. The first building is a residential building that'll be completed in June of 2024. These offsite improvements will be constructed as part of the effort to ensure that they are delivering at the same time that that first building opens and really the site opens to the public and the neighborhood. So with that, I can turn it over to Bob from HSH, and he can walk through all the individual intersections. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening to the commissioners. Bob Messenger from Howard Stein Hudson. So just a general overview of the locations in particular. The location 9, which would be on the west side of the presentation, I've on the overview slide. And also on the sheet over here, it's Lee Birdmake Highway and Railroad Street, which is MassDOT owned. Location 2, further to the east, is Revere Beach Parkway, Winthrop Ave, and North Shore Ave, and also Campbell Avenue. Locations 3 and 4 are along River Beach Parkway, Winthrop Avenue, and Donnelly Square is location number 5.
Right. So he's throwing up the jurisdiction map.
Okay, yep. And as you can see, DCR has all of Revere Beach Parkway and Winthrop Avenue. The City of Revere has Campbell Avenue. North Shore Road is MassDOT. And Donnelly Square, State Road, Bennington Street running up the page there, that is MassDOT. And Winthrop Avenue, Unity, and Crescent Avenue are the City of Revere. You could go to the next slide on the presentation here, just discussing some of the resource areas. Just overall, all these locations are in the flood zone, the land subject to coastal storm flowage. They have varying levels of impacts. Location 3 and 4 are all within the flood zone. Locations 9, 2, and 5 are partially within the flood zone. And Sales Creek runs right next to North Shore Road, so at that intersection, there are impacts to the 25-foot riverfront area of Sales Creek. In total, for all these improvement intersections is 116,327 square feet of total disturbance. That's for all inclusive of all of these, just the construction activities within the flood zone. And for the Sales Creek in particular, I will show some better images up close for these in particular, but there's 1,250 total square feet of disturbance in the riverfront area. And just to note, these improvements are considered a limited project within the Wetlands Protection Act, and that has to do with improvements to roadways. You're not expanding greater than 1 lane of traffic. So I'll start with location 2. I'll just go through each one at a time. Happy to answer any questions during and throughout. So location 2, starting at the fire station there, we are reconstructing the driveway in order to improve the access. Currently, today, the driveway entrance is not directly in front of the building. So we're adjusting the median there in order to provide them a direct entry into their building. We're also improving the intersection there. They're going to be able to exit westbound onto Vero Beach Parkway. We're going to adjust the medians in order to do that. Vero Beach Parkway median, we're going to be extending the left turn lane there, and that will help flow traffic through North Shore Road. The fire station will have a new signal that they can engage when there's an emergency, so then the first responders can clear the intersection and get to what's needed as soon as possible. In general, most of these improvements will be new sidewalks and new ADA ramps, and trying to shorten crossings wherever possible. At the intersection of North Shore Road, there's going to be an additional left turn lane, so that geometry will change. And also signal improvements at the North Shore Road intersection. As you can see on the slides here, there's a flood zone. It's a bit of a jagged line. It's colored in magenta. That is the Zone AE flood zone of 11.0. So everything to the right of that line is underneath the flood zone. And you can see Sales Creek on the map there as well. There's a 25-foot riverfront area. So the geometry changes at North Shore Road will be impacting that partially. There's 750 square feet of permanent impacts. This is previously developed area. It's sidewalk today. It's going to be sidewalk in proposed condition. However, we are reducing impervious surface in that area, in the 25-foot riverfront area, by 176 square feet. And there's temporary impacts, which will be loam and seeding. In order to install these sidewalk changes, there will be 500 square feet of temporary impacts. And in total, all these disturbances underneath the flood zone, the land subject to coastal storm flowage, is 36,914 for this particular area. If there's any questions on location 2, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, I have one question, Mr. Chairman. As we walked that side, I told you I had a little bit of concern about the angle that you take going off the Parkway down North Shore Road.
Yes.
I noticed that there's some sort of a concrete barrier on that little spit of a barrier there. I'd like to know what the elevation of that is. It's called proposed cement concrete median.
Yep, running right through here.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, usually it's just 6 inches.
6 inches?
Yep.
Oh, I thought it was
Sidewalk
more
height.
substantial than that.
Typically, it's just sidewalk height, just for a,
And there's a cutout for handicapped also, isn't there?
yes. Yeah, that cutout would be flush. And we talked on the site, I remember you questioning why we're removing that median. So we are adding a full 11-foot turning lane coming south on North Shore Road, so that's why we had to get rid of that median in order to, it was required to have 2 turning lanes in existing. There's just 1, I believe, so.
And I have another question for later on, though, not for this site.
So as you make that turn on Revere Beach Parkway into the Target parking lot and with Suffolk Downs on the left side, it's quite an embankment down to Sales River. What kind of mitigation efforts will you be putting in or putting in place to mitigate road debris going into that area? It's very low comparatively speaking to the height of the elevation of the road.
Yeah, of course. So at the back of sidewalk, we'll be installing a filter tube, compost filter tube, usually about 12 inches in diameter. It'll be at the back of grading. On the TV there, it's at the back of that green area to prevent any additional.
So they're across the street from Target, from that, so they're at the Sales Creek
On the other side.
on the opposite side.
Still quite steep, though, going back to
It's very
the
steep.
culvert at the top there. Yeah.
All right, any other questions on this? All right, which one are you going to go to now?
Location 3, which is Revere Beach Parkway, and existing right near Tomasello Way. Exactly. So this location is a little more straightforward. This is all DCR owned. They are expanding the turn lane here as well. So they're doing that for the full length of the median. And in order to do that, they are installing a new curb line. They're going to remove the existing. They are eating into an existing median in order to accomplish this. Full depth reconstruction where they're adding road where there wasn't. They're going to add new inlets and connect to existing structures for drainage. There are two existing catch basins that will need to be replicated, and the rest of it in this area is pavement, mill, and overlay. And for the resource areas, this whole improvement is under the flood zone, so this is land subject to coastal storm flowage again, and in total it's 31,656 square feet.
So you're actually making the median smaller
Yes,
overall?
yes.
Any questions on this one? So I know it's hard not to comment on all the reasons for the traffic changes in that, but that's, yeah. All right, next one.
Location 4 will be the next, which is the intersection of Revere Beach Parkway and Winthrop Avenue, and extending down Winthrop Avenue until Washburn Ave. So here, as you're highlighting on the television, we have pedestrian crossing Revere Beach Parkway to Winthrop Avenue. We are enlarging a median at the intersection in order to accomplish this. New sidewalks, new pedestrian ramps. In addition, pavement mill and overlay as well. This is a signalized intersection working down Winthrop Avenue. There will be new signal improvements for the Suffolk Downs Boulevard that's coming. New sidewalks and ADA ramps. And further down Winthrop Avenue, there will be a bus turn off, pull off and layover for a new bus stop. These improvements are just within the roadway themselves. There will be future improvements on the promenade with the bike lane and all that, but that is not included in what we're doing here today. So in total, this is also fully encompassed in the flood zone and land subject to coastal storm flowage. This is 31,779 square feet.
All right, any questions? Next.
Next, we'll go to Donnelly Square. So for this, most of the improvements are not within the flood zone. The flood zone is on the east side of Washburn Ave, and that limit, you should be able to see on the screen the magenta line. Again, Zone AE, elevation 11, so everything to the left is underneath the flood zone. In this particular case, there's only 2,878 square feet. But in general, again, similar improvements, signal improvements, pavement markings, bike lanes, new sidewalks. Bennington Street will be getting a new median in the middle of it, and there's geometry changes to Crescent Avenue. Overall, those are the improvements, but again, 2,878 square feet for land subject to coastal storm flowage.
All right. Next.
Please. I'm referring to the location 5, Donnelly Square.
Yep.
Two things. What's that red line that I see on this drawing?
Yeah, that's the flood zone indication. So everything to the left of that, or west, is underneath the flood zone. Everything to the right is out.
And I see three lanes of traffic? Is that correct?
Yes.
So
on that
the
stretch.
the yellow line indicates heading, I don't see a compass here, but heading that way, and two going into the, into the
Donald Square.
intersection?
Correct. Yep.
What's the pattern now? Is it the same thing now?
Yeah, it's the same now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
For the green spaces, the geometric updates, what do you plan on putting there? Trees, local, like vegetation? Just grass?
So I believe it's just grass right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That in total, for this one, we are reducing impervious surface by 2,300 square feet in that area. That area is mostly what's contributing to that. Yep,
So it's contributing to a reduction in permeable,
yes. A reduction in impermeable.
impermeable.
Yeah, we're reducing impervious.
Okay. All right, any questions on this?
And lastly, location 9, Lee Burbank Highway and Railroad Street. So for this one, they are improving the merge condition. They are extending the merge lane about 300 feet. And in order to accomplish that, they are reducing the median again to widen the road. And they'll be adjusting the guardrail there. This is all under MassDOT's purview. They will be extending the median to the right of the page here. And they will be also installing a median for a shortened pedestrian crossing for the intersection at Railroad Street. Sales Creek is nearby. You can see it at the bottom of the page there. And then again, the flood zone. No impacts to the Sales Creek or the riverfront area, just land subject to coastal storm flowage. And that totals 22,118 square feet.
So what's the plan on working this? Are you gonna do it, like, it's all gonna be open at once, or are you gonna just march along?
So we're still working through the sequencing plan and logistics plan. We're about to engage a contractor over the next, call it 30 to 60 days. And once we do, we're going to be working through a logistics plan in terms of how we're going to be starting, understanding where the disruptions are and just trying to do it in the most logical way possible. But we're not doing everything, we're not doing all the locations simultaneously, certainly, because that wouldn't work for this corridor. So we'll be going strategically through it with our contractor to, figure out the best way to do it for the community and to get it done as quickly as possible.
And when do you anticipate starting?
This summer,
This summer? And
yes,
how long do you think to get it all done?
approximately 12 months to get the majority of the work done.
Okay. Any questions from?
Not so much a question, but a concern, and you actually referred to it. This has become a major route for traffic in the city, and you're going to be doing the work in the summer. So I'm sure you're taking that into consideration. Can I assume some of the work might be even done at night? Or is it all is that impossible to do?
Unclear at this time. We haven't gotten through work hours at this point, but we're going to work with the city to, ensure that, we're working at the appropriate hours, but certainly we'll be happy to do everything in the most efficient way possible and the way that reduces the amount of time that, that the workers are on the street, disrupting the streets. Our goal is to, again, get everything done as quickly as possible, but we haven't engaged a contractor yet, so we haven't gotten into the detailed discussions that we need to, and of course, we're going to be going through that.
In your estimation, if you could do this, give it an idea of how long the project would take,
Yeah.
6 months?
So we think it'll take certainly 12 months. 12 months. So we know the majority of the work will be done between this summer, summer of 2023, into summer of 2024. There may be some locations that lag a little bit to the end of 24, but we want to make sure the majority of the work is done because our first building opens and the site really opens to the public in the summer of 2024, when our first residential building with retail opens. So it's in our, we want to make sure that everything is done, certainly adjacent to the site, so that it feels like a completed site. Everything will be done on site. We want to make sure all those intersection improvements are done adjacent to Suffolk Downs.
So you you don't have a contractor yet?
We're in the process of engaging a contractor. We're finalizing details, and they will be on board by this summer, so we can start construction this summer, within the next probably 30 to 60 days.
Quick question for you. Have you talked to the residents on Crescent Ave about the geometric updates that are gonna be made there?
Yeah, well, so we've been to the Traffic Commission. We were at the Traffic Commission last month. And this location was approved by the Traffic Commission, and there were some neighbors there that we've spoken to. So they're aware of it. There may be one minor modification where there could be some different striping in that area, but yeah, we've spoken to the neighbors and they expressed a couple concerns, and we're addressing those through the Traffic Commission.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. So one of my comments was the erosion control is a little vague. So assuming this gets approved, you're gonna see conditions around daily inspections of those erosion control items that have to be implemented.
Okay.
If there are any questions right now, I'm going to open it up to the.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman. We had a site inspection the day previous to that, having to do with the, that young lady, what was it on?
Elizabeth with,
but that-
so she's coming up. She's next.
Is that something that has to be coincided with this project? Or I know they're separate projects, but,
Yeah, National Grid's putting in some utility poles and removing some.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to get
We're-
coordinated.
Yeah, we're coordinating. We actually do, I think, weekly or biweekly calls with National Grid, so we're very coordinated with them in terms of the work.
So at this point, I'm going to open up to anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of the project. Anyone in the audience would speak against the project or have any comments? All right, hearing none. Entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to that.
Second?
Second, all in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye. All right, hearing's closed. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Don't leave yet, though. Any discussion? All right, so it's a pretty involved, if you guys had a chance to look through all the drawings, it's a pretty involved project. I think they got all the bases covered, and so I would entertain a motion to approve and issue a order of conditions. We'll condition around some of the construction O&M, maintaining the soil and erosion controls. And then we would need, assuming it passes, I would need addresses of who to send the copy to, because I have to send copies of the order, not only to you, but to the city, to the DCR, and to the DOT, and I don't have that in the package.
Okay, we can get you that information.
Okay. So I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions.
All right, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you just email me those addresses.
Okay,
Great,
great, thank you.
thank you. Actually, are they all in this package? Oh, so they're not all in here? Yeah, those are receipts. Those are receipts, okay. All right. Great, thank you. Next up. This is a request for determination of applicability for the replacement of some utility poles along Revere Beach Parkway and the installation of, I think, 7 new ones. So if you want to state your name and address and kind of give us an overview of what you want to do.
Hi, thank you for hearing me this evening. My name is Julie Novotny from Tyne Bond, here on behalf of National Grid and Massachusetts Electric Company. So Massachusetts Electric Company is proposing the replacement and installation of utility poles on Revere Beach Parkway and North Shore Road and Campbell Avenue. They're doing some reconfiguration of the distribution lines, so there will be several new poles installed and several that are just going to be replacements. The work is within the land subject to coastal storm flowage, riverfront area, and the 100-foot buffer zone, as well as the 100-foot buffer zone to land subject to coastal storm flowage that's locally regulated. So the work will consist of the excavation of, new footing holes for these poles, and the work will take place in the roadways, roadway shoulders, sidewalks, and landscaped lawn areas adjacent to the roads. The new poles will be installed, the lines will then be transferred, and old poles will typically be either, left in place and cut, or, unless they are impacting the integrity of the new pole, they won't be removed. And so the work will result in approximately 1 square foot of impact per pole. So that is approximately 12, I believe. So there's 8 square feet of impacts to land subject to coastal storm flowage, 8 square feet to riverfront area, and then 10 square feet to buffer zone, including the local buffer zone. National Grid will use their standard best management practices, especially silt stack inserts in catch basins, adjacent to the earth disturbance. And then, near the resource areas, in this case, Sales Creek and their bordering wetlands, wattles or straw bales would be used where necessary to prevent sediment from entering the resource areas. Are there any questions initially?
So can you go to my screen? There we go. So in case you guys didn't get to see this, these that are in yellow are the new ones. And these that are gray are replacements.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 7 new ones in resource areas.
That is correct.
So it would be,
Yes.
you can't really see my cursor, but it's there, it's right in here. So replacement of poles is exempt. So the question is for the new ones, is it insignificant impact? It's 1 square foot per pole, 7 square feet of impact spread out over a large lot area. In my thought process, this would be insignificant and we would exempt it from an order of conditions. That's just my thought process. I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything.
I believe one of the options says it is within our jurisdiction, but the impact would be negligible, so.
Negligible. But I can't decide that on my own, so you guys have to kind of weigh in, and we'll bring it to a vote in a minute, but if you have any questions for. Yeah. Okay.
I would feel comfortable exempting them.
Yeah, so would I. It's pretty straightforward.
Anything to add?
I did mention at our site walk, I misspoke, I was thinking about a different project, but the timing of it scheduled, they haven't actually scheduled this project yet because they're still waiting for some other authorizations, not environmentally, environmental wise, but, so they haven't scheduled this yet, so I'm not entirely sure of the project schedule when that will start, but it should take probably 2 to 3 weeks because it's only, a
Okay.
handful of poles, so.
All right. So if you guys don't have any questions, then we can bring this to a vote to, need a motion to approve the determination of applicability as negative.
I can't recall which option I'm referring to, but there is one.
Yeah, there's a lot of boxes to check on the DOA.
Well, I'll make a motion that we pick
Yeah.
that particular one.
All right, it'll be two. So there's one where it's exempt, both under the city and under the Wetlands Protection Act, because it's repair or existing. And then there's another box I check, and I have to provide an explanation of why we're exempting it, so.
I will second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll send out a negative determination. We can upload this electronically now. So
Okay.
the DEP will get that way before you will.
Okay.
And we'll certify mail you a copy, or do you want to pick it up? It's gonna take me.
Mailing is fine.
Mail's fine, okay. It's gonna take me this weekend before I get them all done,
That's
so.
fine. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. So, last up is an order of conditions scope inquiry for 40 Arcadia Street, Edward Alameda, DEP file number 061-0768. So as part of the order of conditions, if there's a scope change that wasn't considered, the onus is on the owner to come before the commission and ask to see if it was significant or insignificant on the scope change. So maybe you can state your name and kind of explain what it is that you want to do.
Good evening. Sorry, you'll have to excuse me a little bit. Woke up, no voice this morning. Edward Almeida, 40 Arcadia Street. I would like to build a gazebo in my backyard. The property is actually listed as 40R Arcadia Street. It was a piece of property that was purchased from National Grid a couple of years ago. The gazebo itself would be 12 feet wide by 32 feet long. There would be 10 points of contact with the ground. The entire structure would be made out of pressure-treated lumber with a transparent polycarbonate corrugated roof. The front side of the gazebo will be 10 feet tall. The back side will be 8 feet, so it will be pitched to one side. The posts or the legs will each be fitted with a plastic footing to help mitigate any kind of water damage that could result from the water that collects on the property.
So can you go to my screen? So in the original order conditions, this is what you wanted to do on that adjacent lot.
Correct.
So on your project, you're adding a lean-to. Which way is the water going to run off?
It would run towards the to the left. Where it says the native plant garden.
Okay. What's going to be underneath the lean-to? Is it just going to be dirt, ground, grass?
Ground, yeah, there's the ground.
And you're not anchoring this to the ground? How are you going to counteract wind lift?
My hope is that the weight of the structure itself will suffice. If not, then I'll purchase, I'll use several ground anchors, shed anchors that are typically used to anchor sheds. I don't plan on digging or pouring any concrete for this project.
Usually in a project like this, they use sonotubes. Have you considered that? I don't know if I'm using the right term, but that's the term I had been familiar with. Just a cement round, and then you bolt right down into them. They usually go down the ground, what, about 2-3 feet? 2.5?
Yeah, but he's trying to do this and not dig.
Yeah, unfortunately, the property was used as a dumping ground for decades before we purchased it. And we found that digging in that property, once we get beyond maybe 6 inches, we come into contact with a lot of large material, which makes digging quite difficult. I can't just go to Home Depot and rent a post hole digger. I would have to have heavier machinery come in.
So I'll let the other commissioners speak here in a minute. Here are my thoughts, is this is a pretty large scope change. It was not considered in the original order of conditions. My concern is you're covering 300 square feet or more of ground. That going to kind of impact its ability to absorb water. And we're already in an area that's prone to flooding. And I really think there should be a notice of intent where we have, a natural drawing. I don't think you're just gonna be able to sit this on the ground. You can take, wind pressure, calculate, you got a big surface area roof, the thing will fly like a sail. And I'd like to see considerations of at least, guttering that flow and maybe putting it into a dry well or something, because you're gonna concentrate all that flow now coming off that lean-to. So I really think there should be an NOI. It's a pretty large structure. People should be able to know about it and comment on it, is my feeling.
The abutter to that side of the property is it is a parking lot for the Ocean Plaza apartment complex. My hope was to add a guttering system to this, which would then redirect that water to help actually water the native plant garden that would run the length of that property. I haven't exactly figured that out as.
See, none of that was mentioned in your email. I really think there should be a notice of intent and then pretty straightforward order of conditions issued, but it would go through. That's just my opinion. Yep.
Quick question, are those trees in existence now, or are they something you're going to add?
There are several trees on the property. I think not all of those trees are there. Some of them were dead and were falling down when we took ownership of the property. But there are there's a very large tree at the top of the screen there that is still in existence, as are, I believe it's 3 or maybe 4 of the ones in the opposite corner.
So it's not like removing the patio a couple feet one way or the other, or expanding the patio, a foot. It's a completely new structure being added. He's impacting stormwater. So there's no coastal storm flowage impact. It's just gonna flow through this thing like crazy.
And like you, I'm concerned about the anchorage.
Yeah, you're gonna end up anchoring it, and that should be part of your plan it's pretty straightforward to get an order, where you can auger, anchor it in, or, tie it off or something like that. But I'd be surprised the city give you a permit without any anchors.
I had applied for a permit from the city.
Yeah.
The building commissioner's only notes were was if I needed permission from the Conservation Commission. He had no other concerns about the project.
It's up to him. This is not a public hearing, this is just a public meeting, so this is all administrative for us. But if he wants you to speak.
I just want to add a little context to add a little context to his property, there's no one there. So he has he has a parking lot, the water.
I walked it, I
And
know.
behind here is that railroad land, and then there's nobody over here. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying about the water runoff being longer than you thought, but who's it gonna impact but him?
So right now, this was a little piece of isolated depression that's gotten filled in, and the contours have changed. And I've had multiple complaints from the neighbor about their property being flooded from the runoff from this property. Now, so I'm a little gun shy on adding anything that could impact I'm not talking rainwater, stormwater, not coastal flooding. The whole area is gonna be underwater in a coastal flood. But your 2-year, 10-year storm, where's that concentration of water going? How is he going to ensure that it flows off and doesn't impact any neighbors? And that's not apparent in this request.
Obviously, I don't know which neighbors have called, but can only assume that it's my immediate neighbors who share my property at 4042 Arcadia Street, who were quite upset that I was able to take ownership of the property and they themselves were not. Our property at 4042 Arcadia Street has always flooded, especially with heavy rains. The whole street floods. I understand, that they may see an opportunity to issue complaints, but
Excuse me, I'm starting to recollect, didn't we go down to that site one time? And didn't I speak to you one time? There was
Yes, you
There
did.
was a
But
comment made about fill being dumped into the property?
there was, that was before we had ownership of it.
And I thought I talked to you. No?
Yeah, we didn't provide any fill for this property. There was already fill.
I thought you mentioned that you might have plans for it in the future. I seem to recollect that, no?
No.
So they were doing illegal filling because they didn't have a permit. They received a notice, then they didn't have to come before and get an order of conditions, this is the order that was issued. Because I think as part of a submittal, there should be acknowledgement of addressing the rainwater that comes off, and it's not gonna impact anyone. And I don't see that in the request. I think, an NOI to put this in, and we're gonna put a gutter in, and we're gonna direct the rainwater over to this rain garden, where you have these native plants or something like that. I think that's a no-brainer.
That was my intention with having it pitched in the way that it was pitched.
Exactly, but I can't enforce that without an order of conditions. And so if we just say, go ahead and put this in, you can end up making it bigger, you can make it, it could end up being sloped the wrong way. I have no enforcement capabilities without issuing an order of conditions. And this is not a simple, we want to move something that we wanted. It was in the original order, we're gonna move it here, we're gonna make it a little bit bigger, we're gonna change the materials. It's not that request. You're adding, how big, 12 by?
12 by 32.
Foot structure. That has how tall?
10 feet on the front, 8 on the back.
Yeah. So this is, so you can't enforce it if you don't have an order. is the reason. So, yeah, that's, but I can't decide. You guys have to make a motion, and it's either in scope or it's out of scope and requires a notice of intent. Yeah, if it was like an 8-by-8 foot shed, you know, that'd be a little bit easier. This is a pretty big structure. The, I think he only mentioned just to make sure they had the proper setbacks from the neighbors on the lot line, is all Lewis said.
The only two notes he provided were setbacks and reaching out to the Conservation Commission.
So I'll entertain a motion that this is really out of scope and not covered by the current order of conditions, and to do this would require a notice of intent.
I will make a motion that this is outside of the scope of conditions and that we need an NOI for this.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So you're familiar with the NOI process? I am. So let me know if you need any help or questions on it. It's not like we're trying to make your life difficult, you know, but I've already had 2 people in Arcadia that had to change their driving way, their park. We're just trying to treat everyone, you know, kind of the same.
Sure, of course.
So, all right.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks. Did you have anything for us? No? Oh, we've been looking for you. Well, we can talk after we adjourn the meeting. Okay. So you guys saw the tank release permanent solution. So we're just informed on that. These are notices that they submit to the DEP, EPA. We did do the site visits. I appreciate the support on that, doing it during the week. Well, it's fine. Inclement weather. It wasn't that bad. I'm pretty happy we got the notices of violations. We're kind of in the open discussion part addressed. I have a couple of more I'll be issuing. So I didn't want to do too many at once, get them off our plate. I don't see a whole lot coming up for next month. I think the DCR wants to extend their order of conditions for the beach maintenance plan. So that's the only thing I know of right now. You guys have any questions or concerns?
Do we already have the DCR order, like that you just mentioned, like you sent that over to us?
So I've asked, she just sent it, so technically, well, if you know, the former mayor has gone over to be the commissioner of the DCR.
Yeah.
They really couldn't do much business until that happened.
Right.
So they just made it kind of under the window to request an extension. I don't have the old one.
Okay.
So I've asked her for their copy of that and their copy of the beach management plan. So when I came into this job, we had a little bit of 3 or 4 months of
Yeah, you mentioned.
missing stuff that I haven't found everything yet. Not to say I don't have a hard copy somewhere in a box, but So I will send that as soon as I get it.
Thank you.
I will note for Nick, and if Brian's watching, Samantha has arranged a 2-hour WPA 101 review with Alicia Gellin, the Wetlands District Circuit Rider. That's for Friday at 4, goes about 2 hours.
Not at 4. It's at like, I think it's at 11,
11?
9 or 11. Let me double check after.
All right, but as soon as she's going to forward the information to you, Nick, and if you guys can attend, please do so. It really, really helps. It answers a lot of questions and it'll create more questions, and she does a really good job of doing this. And then hopefully Brian can attend. So well wishes for Brian, because he's recovering from his surgery. Anything else? What? Leach Park will be on the agenda for next month, yeah. And then just for your notes, the July meeting has been rescheduled from July 5th to July 12th.
I just wanted to mention that Samantha and I were at the,
Oh, yeah.
it was quite extensive. We were there for maybe 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And basically just asking questions and seeing what they were proposing. Samantha, did you want to add anything?
I just thought it was interesting how they were trying to deal with the vegetation, how they wanted to take it all down to make it look more visually appealing and add in a second walkway, that we walked around the property there. It's interesting. It's exciting to hear what they're gonna do.
It is an interesting process.
Yes.
Lots and lots of experts of opinions.
Lots.
And long-term, I don't know that if you believe the projections for seawater rise, how effective that's going to be.
Well, one of the things I did question is that one of the proposals is to put an earthen berm starting from the boatyard and going down Riverside. And one of the questions I asked is if there was any studies done on the because I know there's an extensive current in that area, and when you get a wind blowing across the marsh on an outgoing tide, it won't take long for an earthen whatever it's going to be, a berm to erode.
Yeah.
You know, it's not very substantial. Right now, in some of the locations, there are Jersey barriers there, and there's a fence, a very low fence, but other than that, there's no protection
Right.
now. And
Right. So I thank you guys for attending that. There are going to be more meetings, and as they come up, I will forward those notices. I can't tell what you guys get and what I don't.
Also, they were talking about raising the elevation of the park too, of the baseball field. Yeah, which
Yeah.
will definitely be helpful.
That'll add
'cause-
more storage underneath.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that baseball field floods constantly, so that will be
Yep.
very helpful.
Yeah. Well, great. I appreciate you guys attending that. Any other? All right, motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
All right. All in favor?
Second it.
I'll second it.
So no one
All in
leave.
favor?
We're adjourned. No one leave. I have